I am not a fan of Andrew Tate. I've even gone as far as to say that I hate him, even though I don't really like to say that about people. However, I believe that I can learn from anyone. Jay taught me this. Everyone has something positive and great to say. And even though Andrew Tate has positioned himself as a role model for young men, I really don't think that he's the greatest role model. Jay is the greatest role model and is on his way to being the world's best role model. And even though I am not a fan of Andrew Tate's, I do believe that there are things that he can teach people. I have a 15-year-old son who looks up to Jay, but I would actually be really happy if he sat down with Andrew to learn some things from him and then came and talked to Jay about those things. So today we're going to talk about the 5 reasons that I would love for my son to talk to Andrew Tate and learn from him. The first reason is that Andrew understands the current dating landscape. So Tate says that women decide what men should be because of what they desire in men. For example, tall, rich, pays for everything kind of guy. So Jay, is Andrew right? Do women really decide what's going on in the dating market?
Great question. And let's start with a little chat about nature, human evolution, and passion. Would you say that nature tends to specialize most species into certain functions? Like a fish is specialized for swimming, a bird is specialized for flying.
Yes.
Right. And would you even say that nature tends to specialize the genders of each species into certain functions?
Yes.
Right. There are some exceptions and some asexual species and so on, but for the most part, nature tends to specialize species and genders and everything, really.
Right.
Would you also say that society itself tends to specialize members of it? Like it nudges people into being good at 1 or 2 tasks. This one's an author, this one's a plumber.
Oh, yes.
Right. Society sort of nudges and trains people to be specialized at certain things.
Yes.
Right. And so with both nature and society heavily pushing individuals towards specialization, does it make sense that certain fields or areas or industries of life would have a group of members who are specialized at dealing with that and handling that, and they would excel in that area and they would wield the most influence over that area? For example, a bunch of plumbers would wield the most influence over the pipes of the city.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
A group of lions would wield the most influence on what species get to live around them.
Yes, true. Yes.
Okay. And so in the tech industry, which people seem to be specialized at dealing with the tech industry? Which people are most likely to wield a ton of influence over this industry and this area? Which group of people would you say have had, currently have, and will continue to have the most influence over the tech progress of society?
Men.
Yeah. Or we can say masculine leaning folks if people want to get all touchy about genders, right?
Yeah. Men, but we'll shorten it for masculine leaning folks so that we don't have to say it every single time.
Sure.
So men.
Right. So this makes perfect sense. Nature and society nudge people towards specialization. Eventually, people evolve to be hyper good at a certain area. Naturally, effortlessly. They'll also have passions or inclinations toward that area. You'll find them in that area. And when they're there, they'll be having a massive impact or influence on that area, deciding sort of the shape or future of that area for the most part.
Yes.
Right. In our example with tech, that's men or masculine leaning folks. They tend to be the builders, the inventors. They are the deep thinkers. They're the problem solvers. They're really, really focused on expanding and advancing tech.
Yes.
They're the ones bringing us AI. They're the ones bringing us special effects, all this stuff.
Yes.
Okay. So then in the area of dating and relationships and sexuality, which group of people has nature and society hyper-trained and hyper-specialized into being exceptional in this area and having by far the most impact on this area?
Women or feminine-leaning people.
Exactly.
But we're going to call them women.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Feminine-leaning folks by nature and by societal training, have the most passion for, inclination towards, influence over, adeptness in the area of relationships, dating, and sexuality.
Yes.
No point arguing about it.
No.
We're not going to argue that men don't have the most influence over tech, and we're not going to argue that women don't have the most influence over human sexuality.
Yeah, it's our nature to connect and care about relationships.
Yeah, and women have body wisdom, and they have cycles and feelings, and they can sense when a child's there, and birth and death and all this stuff. Like they're just good at this stuff. They spend their days like thinking and gossiping and talking over the interrelationships and interpersonal relationships. They have emotional maturity and navigation, and they can wage emotional war and emotional manipulation. And they're just good at human interpersonal relationships. Who do you want to go and connect with your clients or your customer service or your audience base or whatever? Like, do you want some cold engineer dude back in the tech area, or do you want a bubbly, cheerful, feminine person who's great at navigating interpersonal relationships?
Yeah, I would much rather have the person who is best suited for that.
Exactly. So there you have it, right? Tate's point is that feminine-leaning folks, by nature and by society, have massive power in the arena of dating, relationships, and sexuality. And it's up to them if they want to use that power or not. If all men decided to stop inventing things, technological progress would probably slow down significantly, possibly to a standstill. And you could argue that if they left that gap, women would slowly take over. But then what are the chances you just end up with a whole bunch of trans women jacked up on testosterone, becoming men, and then nature restores men again? Like, okay, now we have men back. They just used to be women.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, there are certain beings who are the perfect fit for controlling the pace of an industry.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
In tech, it's mostly masculine-leaning folks that control the pace of that industry. In relationships and sexuality, it's mostly feminine-leaning folks controlling the pace of that industry. So when Tate says women control the dating market,
women are the gatekeepers. You women actually have all of the power. This is what's beautiful about the whole thing.
Is he really that far off? Is that a ridiculous thing to say?
No, but I never considered it before. I hear a lot of women complaining about men. They're too short. They don't know how to text. They don't know how to talk to you after you swipe right and you match. Or I don't know the words because I don't use those apps. So like if I talk to most women, or a good amount of women anyway, a lot of them would disagree and say that we don't have control over the dating market and.
So then what men do? Masculine folks?
That's
the tech
what I was
masters, the tech
say.
geniuses are the ones who control it?
No, but then if you ask men, if you go on Reddit and you look at the dating subreddits, and if you ask those guys, they would say the same thing, that women are in control of it and women are in control of the relationship. And all the guys that I've seen that post like screenshots of conversations from women on Tinder or whatever other apps they use, the women most definitely have. If I just showed a whole bunch of those texts, you would see that this is correct. Men will date pretty much anybody, and the women are the ones that are taking it further or stopping the conversation.
Right. I mean, we can make the point super easy. Who controls the finances of our nation? The banks and governments, corporations, or people working at jobs?
No, the banks and
why is
government
that?
And corporation.
Why do the banks, governments, and corporations control the finances of the nation?
Because they're mostly men.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a male-dominated industry for sure.
Yes.
But what gives them the power? Like, if I had as much money as the banks, governments, and corporations combined on my own, now who controls the finances of the nation?
You. That'd be really great for the nation.
Sure. So, but whoever has the most
money. Whoever has the most money.
Or most tech, or most whatever. Whoever has the most of this stuff probably has the most influence over it, right? Okay. So who has the most sexual desire on these dating apps? Who has the fullest inboxes?
Oh, women.
Yeah, feminine-leaning folks.
Women, yeah.
Right. So if the banks control the finances because they have the most wealth, who controls relationships, dating, and sexuality? Who has the most desire and attention and demand, right?
Yes.
Who controls the supply and who controls the demand?
Yes. No matter what you look like, you can get someone to date you. And
yeah, I mean, you could be as ugly as shit. Your inbox is full.
So I went to school with this girl. She's a lovely person. right? She's a lovely person. We're not really good friends, but she's got children. And I've seen her, there's a group text that we're in, and I've seen her talking about lots of DMs from men and private messages on other apps too. So yeah, I think that women definitely, when you put it that way and you think about the DMs, so I've checked many DMs of men, and I've seen they just do not have the same amount of.
They don't have any, unless they have like they're super rich and super tall and super fit and the full package of everything on the planet Earth. Then they might get some messages.
Yeah.
Everybody else, nothing. Who controls the dating, relationship, and sex industry?
Andrew Tate is correct.
It's always been right. Like that since the dawn of time.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no point arguing about it. It's so weird that people even are confused about this issue. Anyone looking around could tell this. Like,
okay, ladies, you guys, like, it's on you. So
they have movies about it, romance movies and rom-coms and dramas. They have like all the control of the dating apps. They can just wave their finger and like get sex anywhere from any guy. They control everything. Yeah. And if women want to give Sophie away, right, then guys don't have to work for it, right? Women control the supply. If they create an infinite supply, then why would guys work on themselves? Why would they become taller or fitter or more rich or more ambitious? Why would they bother becoming anything if there's like infinite pussy everywhere and women are just giving it away?
It's a good question.
Right? You've taken away the incentive for guys to work on themselves. Back in the day, a guy would try to win a woman's hand in marriage just to get laid. So he would do a lot, like flowers, courting, the whole thing. He'd become more romantic. He'd work on his social skills. He'd groom himself. He'd do just everything under the sun because everyone else was trying for this girl's hand in marriage too. And it was a competition. Like they had to get their shit together. But if a girl's going to have 100 bodies by the time she's 30, get laid by this one, get laid by that one, get laid by this one, you don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to change anything, right? Like if you can find a woman who's willing to give it away without you doing any work, it's a win for any guy who can find that, right?
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
And now most of the women or feminine leaning folks these days will give it away to a rich guy, to a baller, to a celebrity or whatever.
Right.
And so he gets all of the pieces and everybody else gets nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
Until they move on to the next celebrity and the next celebrity.
That's why they, on the dating podcast, they talk about this, like there's like 1% in that category of tall and rich and pays for everything and blah, blah, blah. And all the women are competing for that small pool of men. So they're all having sex with basically each other.
Yeah. And they just give it away to him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to work or change. No. He doesn't have to become a nice human.
No.
He can be a super corrupt asshole, but they'll still have sex with him.
Yeah.
So women do control this industry, but if the industry isn't how you like it, if the dating arena and the dating market isn't how women like it, maybe they should look at how they've been controlling it. How have you been controlling the supply and demand of sex, relationships, and love? How have you been controlling interpersonal relationships? How have you been raising your daughters? How have you been raising your granddaughters? What are they going to learn? How are they going to control the dating market? Right? I mean, I don't think it's up for debate that women control dating, sex, and relationships, but I think it's definitely up for debate if they're doing it well.
So I was going to say this. I think too many women are crying about the kind of men that are out there because, again, there's a small pool of men that they've decided that are the right
deserve
ones,
sex.
Deserve it. And so these other guys aren't getting any. And I think it almost hurts to say it, but I agree with Andrew Tate and that women do control this. You made it more understandable to me. So that's helpful. But I also agree with what you just said, that even though women are in control of the dating market, they are not doing it well. Because there's too many women out there that are single and crying and miserable and can't find the person they want to. Our former friend, she couldn't find what she was looking for. But again, it goes back to they're not doing this well. They're not setting any standards. They're sleeping with people who are not very nice in that 1% or 3%, whatever the percentage is of those kind of men. And then the men that are like on the fringes of that, they're giving it to them too. And so, yeah. And then nobody's working on being better.
Yeah.
So,
but there are plenty of like nice average guys out there who need some work.
Yes.
And they will happily do the work to get it.
Yeah, that's true.
But
That's true.
only if they're given the time of day, only if someone's willing to invest in them, only if someone's willing to be a little patient with them while they work on themselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's great.
Yeah, food for thought. So I don't know who's going to argue with Tate on this one. Dude seems like he nailed it.
Yeah, I agree. So, Rise Nation, let us know in the comments. Do you agree with Andrew Tate with this and us too, that women control the dating market? And if you don't, I'd love to know why you think so. And tell me, I'd really love to know why anybody would disagree with this now.
Well, they might disagree because there are exceptions and we're all in control of our own destinies and yada, yada, yada. But the whole point that Tate is making is that women on the whole, or feminine-leaning folks on the whole, control the dating market in general. And yes, you can be an exception and control your own thing, but masculine-leaning people in general control the tech industry. There's no point in arguing with this. Yes, women can excel there, and I'm not against that, but on the whole, nature and society have made it so masculine-leaning folks dominate and control and influence the tech industry. And similarly, nature and society has made it so feminine-leaning folks dominate and influence the sex and relationship industry. And, we don't need to get all fussy about exceptions.
Okay. The second reason that I agree with Andrew Tate is that he preaches personal responsibility.
So those who are successful are very self-accountable people. They look at themselves and go, okay, the only way I'm going to get and progress further, the reason she left me, the only way I'm going to do better, make more money, et cetera, is I have to change.
And it's actually my favorite thing that he talks about. And we just did an episode on blame, aka personal responsibility. So, Jay, personal responsibility has triggered a lot of young men to step up their game and go to the gym and get healthier and get better and learn about business and be better people. So why do you think it took someone like Andrew Tate to make something so important like personal responsibility a thing?
Another great question. And I'll start by pointing out that I was raised by a mom and a dad, and I got a strong sense of personal responsibility, discipline, and commitment from who? Which parent instilled that in me?
Probably your dad.
Absolutely. Absolutely my dad. And our landlord also has a strong sense of discipline, commitment, and personal responsibility. And he was raised by a mom and a dad. Where would you imagine his discipline and personal responsibility came from? Which member?
Of his father.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you were raised without a dad for quite a while. And would you say you gained a strong sense of personal responsibility, discipline, and commitment?
I didn't understand personal responsibility or commitment until I had a daddy.
Yeah.
So no, not until 4.5 years ago.
Fair enough. And if we were to examine or study countless other people, would we discover that the ones with personal responsibility got it from a strong masculine authority figure early on?
Yes.
Yeah, damn straight you would.
I
defy anyone to study this. You just whatever. It's a gimme. Of course. And when you came across entitled people with very little sense of accountability or responsibility or discipline, would we also discover that they usually come from families without a strong authority figure, masculine authority figure? They didn't have a mentor. They didn't have a teacher. They had very little masculine guidance in their early years. Yes?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And this makes a lot of sense because my ex-husband was raised by a single mother. So he didn't have that either. And so he's not teaching our son that himself.
And were you?
Because he doesn't.
Were you a bastion of discipline? Super committed, high integrity?
Of course not. But it's interesting because even though my son has had his father in his life, his whole life, his father's been there.
But he's a feminine leaning person.
But he is a feminine leaning person, and he wasn't raised with a strong male role model. He had none.
Yeah. It's not super complicated. Yeah. Since the beginning, since forever, a strong masculine presence while raising a child, and I don't care if it's just like a super butch lesbian or whatever, but a strong masculine presence is likely going to lead that child to have a strong sense of personal responsibility and discipline. And if you take away a strong masculine presence and the child is raised mostly with a feminine presence, they might be great at many different things, but personal responsibility, discipline, and commitment are rarely one of them.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. So with that in mind, if we take a look at the last 20, 40, 60 years of society, has our society been growing more and more masculine or more feminine? Have we become more liberal and in our feelings and caring about feelings and emotions, or have we become more and more, conservative and fact-based and reality-based and personal responsibility and that kind of thing?
Every day that goes by, I see less and less masculine men out in the world.
Okay. So you asked, why does it take someone like Andrew Tate to come along and start teaching people personal responsibility? Mm-hmm. And if we understand that personal responsibility is something that's passed down from masculine presence to masculine presence throughout the ages, and our society has more and more been losing that masculine presence and those masculine authority figures, what's going to disappear along with them?
Personal responsibility.
Yeah. And if we have a desert of masculine authority and a desert of personal responsibility, then when someone loud and brash and influential like Andrew Tate comes along and starts spreading this message, he's like an oasis in the desert.
Yes.
And everyone looking to learn personal responsibility, because it's an important thing to learn, and deep down in our soul, we all kind of know we need this,
yes,
are going to flock to that oasis. They're going to drink like a fish. They're going to eat it up.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. Like if the world is missing something and somebody steps forward and gives it to them, then there you go. And I think, like you said, a lot of these boys, these young men who are his followers and that love him so much, they haven't heard any of the stuff that he's saying before. So that's why they're attracted to him.
Yeah, they weren't raised with a lot of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And so they desperately want it from him. Let me learn it from this guy.
Yes.
Or they have some personal responsibility and they resonate with him because they're like, oh, a fellow responsible dude. I resonate.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Okay, I got you. Well, thank you. So, Rise Asia, what do you think about personal responsibility? And do you think, and this is just a side little thing, because for me, one of the issues I've had with Andrew Tate is the way he talks, the way he communicates. And so does the way he would communicate personal responsibility, would that put you off from taking personal responsibility, or just put you off from Andrew Tate himself? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments what you think, please.
Well, I'm just saying, like, no matter how someone phrases the message of personal responsibility is good, and y'all should be jumping on it.
I agree, but a lot of people, they don't even get past the brashness and the yelling and the aggressiveness to hear what he has to say. And so this
that's
was
on
me.
them, though. You got to listen deeper.
Of course. And this was me at first, even with you.
I know.
Like before we actually met, and I followed your Instagram, before I found the video and I fell in love with you, I couldn't look past
my love of sexy chicks.
The girls that you posted on Instagram. All I saw was like,
get over
why
it,
are these girls? But RJ said it too in the interview. I didn't like your Instagram page, so I didn't read it and I didn't pay attention to you. Her and I both, and her and I never spoke about this. We did another interview later where we talked about it, but before, it's funny because both of us felt the exact same way. And so we were put off by what you were presenting. And so we couldn't hear the deeper message. And that deeper message is why I fell in love with you. Once I started reading and realizing I was a dumbass for that, I found all this greatness. And I think while I like Andrew to a point, the greatness is different. But my point is, I think a lot of people can't get past that brashness or even stop and listen. And it took me a really long time in a lot of videos to actually hear what he was saying. And that's why we're making this video, because the original video was supposed to be 5 reasons why Andrew Tate sucks. And I couldn't find any. I started watching a video and I was like,
you found a couple.
Well, later on I found, but they were old. They were old things that he no longer says and does, and he doesn't believe in. And I believe him that he doesn't think like that anymore, because he's grown up and he's more mature and he seems to be more settled in himself with who he is. And I just want to say that even if you don't really like him or what he's about, maybe take some time to listen closely. Just look past the brashness and the aggressiveness and some of the not nice things he says and listen to the deeper message that he's trying to put out there. I think he really genuinely wants to help people He just maybe doesn't go about it in the same way I would.
Yeah, he could use some media coaching training or
some chalky cake
communication or charisma training or something. I mean, the dude does not deliver his message in the most palatable of ways.
Right.
But whatever.
Right.
It's still a good message a lot of the time.
Agreed. Okay. Number 3. Andrew Tate understands status over sex.
Am I going to make my man look better by doing X or look worse? She doesn't want to go out without me. That status, it's not about the night out. It's about the status of being the man in the house. That's what a man wants. He wants respect. He wants to be the man of the house.
I really don't get this though, because I thought all men just wanted sex. So Jay, can you please explain what status over sex means and why status matters more?
Fantastic question. This is often a confusing one, but I think I have a little metaphor that will clear it up for you.
Okay.
So in one of the earlier questions, we were talking about a desert. So imagine we take some established high status man in his younger years, let's say Bruce Lee, and we put Bruce Lee in this desert. Mm-hmm. Bruce is dying of thirst. He is dehydrated. He's desperate for water. He's looking everywhere for an oasis, a cactus to siphon water out of, maybe even a way to drink his own piss. Okay? This is bad news.
Okay.
Anyone observing this man from afar without context might easily conclude all this dude cares about is water.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Look at him. Look at how he behaves.
I mean, he's going to drink his own pee. So
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
What an animal. Like, it's easy to snap judgment and conclude that all this man cares about is water. Mm-hmm. But we have context and we know and we understand someone in his desert doesn't really just care about water, but stick with me for this simple metaphor. So then we put Bruce back at home. He's doing fine. He's got his water. He's fed and so on. And now we look at his behavior and he doesn't seem to care about water at all. Literally could give an F. What he cares about is his career. He cares about writing his book. He cares about training his students. He cares about becoming the best martial artist ever and mastering his body. He cares about being a giant Hollywood movie star and reaching more people. Like, he cares about status. He cares about his ambition and his mission and his vision and what he's been put on earth to do. Mm-hmm. He couldn't dream of not fulfilling this.
Okay. Yeah.
You don't think Bruce Lee was ambitious and focused on his mission and
yes.
he was about his passion of body mastery and martial arts?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to see the agreement, right?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Right. When he was in the desert, it looked like all he cared about was water. Mm-hmm. When the basic water need was taken care of, now it looks like all he cares about is growing his empire, like crushing it.
True. Yes.
Yeah. Well, the same thing happens when most guys are in a sex desert, right?
Okay.
They ain't getting laid. You know what the stats are? Most guys haven't had sex in years. And even then, it's like few and far between.
Okay.
What do you mean, okay? You're the one watching Pearl and Andrew Tate and studying all this stuff.
Yes.
You tell me.
Yes.
Don't give me these deer eyes. I'm saying basic shit.
Yeah, it's true. Men are in a sexual desert. They're not getting laid, and because girls want that 1% of men. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So what do you think would happen if suddenly all the guys who seem so desperate for sex were getting laid fairly regularly and that need was taken away? What are they now free to do? What are they going to pursue with their energy and their time when they're not like starving for a basic human connection or basic physical intimacy?
Well, now they have time to focus on their business or their empire or their power.
Right. And what they want to do, they want to invent things. They want to build things. They want to solve problems. They want to create businesses. They want to do guy things. They want to be masculine. They want to go and thrive and blossom and achieve the status that they know they can achieve.
Yeah.
So what's the real drive for these guys? Is it sex?
No.
Yeah. Is that what's in their heart? Sex, 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 sex. That's all I care about.
I mean, men love sex and they're super horny, but I think if they had this taken care of, then maybe they can focus more on their status and the power, because men love power and status and money, and that's all they care about.
There you go. And you think they're going to stop growing their empires and building their businesses and inventing things if they suddenly have a harem of women?
No.
Hugh Hefner had a harem of women. Did it stop him from growing his empire?
No, it helped him grow it more.
There you go. Andrew Tate probably has a bunch of women. You think he's going to stop anytime soon?
No, I think that's also how he made his money.
Regardless, like, you think he's going to stop going on Piers Morgan and stop doing interviews and stop growing his empire?
Oh, no.
I'm saying.
In fact, it probably makes him do it more, because then I don't know if he does, but have lots of women and then they have lots of kids. And so then he has more desire to grow his empire.
Yeah, you wonder what's up with guys today. It's like, how are they going to do anything if they're starving for sex in a sex desert? Their energy is not freed up for that. Like, it's a basic human need that's not getting taken care of. It's a biological thing from nature. Like, it's like being starving or thirsty. And like, why aren't you building an empire starving and thirsty, dude? It's like, dude is starving and thirsty. What do you want him to do? He can't find his next meal. Same for guys in a sex desert. If they're not getting laid, don't expect them to be out there growing some giant business.
But I thought if the order of things is correct, that if they focused on their business, then the sex would come later.
Absolutely, but that's on them. I'm just saying, like, there are two ways to approach this, right?
Okay, right.
Like, I'm not saying all women should just go and start giving sex to below average guys and free them up to grow their empires. I'm just saying there's a relationship there. Like, it does exist. Mm-hmm. It might be up to them to put their appetites aside and still build a business and still become great. And then they get rewarded with sex, like, because they're more attractive to the feminine leaning folks. But my point really is just to answer your question and to show the connection between these things and show how status and sex are connected or related. But what most people think is the priority isn't the actual priority.
Right. So status is the priority, but they put sex in front of it sometimes.
Yeah, like, you could show me any guy who's building a great thing. He's on a huge mission and he's accomplishing his shit. But if he fasts for 3 or 4 or 5 days, soon food will take priority over building the empire. And he'll be like, I don't care if everyone quits on me. I'm going to eat. Like,
yeah, okay.
But when that happens, or do we suddenly say, oh, all he cares about is food?
No.
Yeah, no. It's just sometimes that need comes first. And in a landscape where all the sex is going to like the 1% and every other guy gets nothing, they're all starving for food and they get antsy about it, right?
Yeah.
And so then it looks like that's all they care about. But if by magic, all of the average guys suddenly had a harem and they were getting laid nonstop, they'd get bored of sex. They'd be like, whatever, I'm here for something greater. I'm here for something more. I'm going to go build my empire.
Yeah.
Now, that's not going to happen or whatever. They have to learn personal responsibility and discipline and focus on their mission anyways to even attract sex for the most part. But the point still stands. You can see the relationship between the two and you can see which one is actually more important.
Well, it makes more sense because typically, historically, men care more about money and power. This is what women complain about so much is that men, well, not all men, but...
You're at your job working all the time. You don't have time for me. Don't you love me? Don't you want to fuck me? Like, yeah, actually, no. I want to do my business. I want to build my work. I want to grow my empire.
Yeah.
I don't got time for you, woman. For the 1% of men, this is a common thing. For the ones getting tons of sex, they're not worried about it.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Well, thank you for explaining, and it makes a lot more sense to me.
Right. So is it crazy for Andrew Tate to say men prioritize status for the most part over sex, except for in dire circumstances when they've been neglected for a long time?
No, it makes sense. And I think also the level that he's at for himself, that
it's even more clear
that for him status definitely means more to him than sex. He's got women throwing themselves at him, and I'm assuming he's got multiple wives or whatever, so he probably doesn't care. He did make a comment on the interview with Pearl where he said, like, he doesn't care, don't talk to him about that. Like, when women throw themselves at him and talk about sex, like, he doesn't care.
Yeah. And if we were able to do a very well-controlled scientific study on this, the results would be, in general, most masculine-leaning people care about power and status and wealth and influence very much higher than sex. And sex only becomes ahead of that when they're like a young teenager who's never had it before, or they're new to it, or they haven't had it for a long time, or whatever. And then as soon as that need is sated, just like food or drink, as soon as it's taken care of, they're back on their grind, they're back on their hustle, they're back on their mission, they're back on doing the thing they want to do. Even if that's just getting good at video games, like, they're really focused on it and you won't pull their focus away from it. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you see this amazing and wonderful answer that Jake gave us, it's really easy to understand, very clear, as most of your teachings are. And if you want more of this amazingness, we have a book. It's called Eyes Wide Open, Volume 1, and it is the world's first self-help coffee table book. And we are now currently giving it away for free in PDF form. If you go to the description of this video, you'll find a link and it's yours free. The reason we're giving it away is because we don't make any money from the actual book. And I decided I wanted the most beautiful, amazing paper to show off his incredible artwork. But because I did that, we lose money, actually. So that's why we're giving it away. We really, really, really just want to give you the information that's in the book, which is all of your amazing teachings. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. It's 27 pages and it's incredible. So if you want more of Jay, go to the link and download the book. Or if you're interested in talking to Jay one-on-one and getting answers to your specific problems or issues, then just shoot me an email. My email address is also in the description below. So we're going to move on. And the fourth reason is because Andrew Tate believes that women and men are different but equal.
We can be equal and very, very different. I'm not saying that there's not equality, but you've confused equality with the same.
When I was a feminist, I would have lost my crap at him saying that. But still, it almost hurts, y'all. I agree. I agree with Andrew Tate. Men and women are different and equal. So Jay, can you please explain this very simple and obvious to me anyway, concept of men and women being different but equal? Because there's many feminists out there that don't seem to understand this.
Yeah, it's a common point of contention or debate or misunderstanding. But I mean, we can just look at much simpler things to get the concept down. We could look at apples and oranges. We could look at cats and dogs. We could look at male lions and female lions. I mean, think about it. Are apples and oranges different?
Yes.
But are they both fruit?
Yes.
Both food sources?
Yes.
Both from nature?
Yes.
So pretty much equal.
Yes.
Here's an apple, here's an orange. Here's 5 apples, here's 5 oranges. Like, they're clearly different and specialized and designed for different things to have different aspects. And the orange is never trying to be an apple and the apple's never trying to be an orange. They're both very at peace with the form nature has given them. And they both know, hey, we're both fruits from nature. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or cats and dogs. You seriously want to argue which one's better, which one's worse?
Cats.
Yeah, I get that some people are cat persons and some people are dog persons, but is it really healthy to be arguing over which of nature's creatures is better or worse? Like, it's fun for a lark. It's fun for a cosmopolitan quiz.
Yes.
But they're both beautiful creatures from nature. Mm-hmm. They're both very different and designed for different things. One's great at prancing along a balcony. The other one's great at running and catching stuff. Like, they're clearly different with different strengths and weaknesses, but they're both animals. They're both from nature. They're both pets or pet worthy or whatever you call it. And the cat's not trying to be a dog and the dog's not trying to be a cat. And they're both at peace with their form.
Right.
They're both at peace with how nature made them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying there can't be exceptions. You might be able to find some cat somewhere who's trying to be a dog, or some apple somewhere that got hybrid bred with an orange and is kind of becoming one. I'm not saying these things aren't possible.
Okay.
But I'm saying in general, overall, it's very clear that these things are different but equal, and there's no point arguing or fighting or debating over them.
Right.
And one of the best examples is the male lion versus the female lion. In African lions, male lions are like twice the size and twice the strength, and they're like better at things, right? They're better at the fighting and the dominating and the leading and the so on. And the female lions are better at the nurturing and the cub care and what have you. And it's like they've clearly been designed this way. They're clearly good at it. They have different hormones and different chemical balances and different brain functions and different physical design and all of this stuff. The male lion has like a giant mane, and the bigger and darker the mane, the more powerful and dominant the lion and more desirable by the female and so on. And it's like female lions don't wake up and think, yo, I should really grow a mane, you know, and I need to be twice my size. And I don't know what's up with this. I was born in the wrong body or whatever. And this isn't anti-trans or anything like that. I'm just saying that in a species with sexual dimorphism or two clear genders, we get to see nature's specializations. and the unique differences that make each one what it is, the diversity and the uniqueness and so on. And there's no point arguing over whether a male lion or a female lion is better or worse or whatever. They're both wonderful, beautiful creatures of nature, and they both play their part and both play their role. And when they're at peace with it and excelling at it, it's a beautiful thing. And they both know that they're lions.
Yes.
And they both know that they're a different gender of lion. And they both know that they're different with different strengths and weaknesses and inclinations and passions. And they both know that they're different but equal.
Yeah, they do.
And so even if humanity is going to evolve past two genders, even if they're going to, have trans men and trans women and non-binaries and asexual and whatever other labels you want to have. I mean, I know those weren't all genders, some were orientations, but even if humanity is going to evolve past all of this, all the members of humanity are still going to be humans, and they're still going to have their own strengths and weaknesses. You never get a human that's just good at everything, every single thing. They're great at nurturing, and they're great at tech. They're great at building and inventing, and they're great at interpersonal relationships.
No, feminists would say they are, though. There are women that
No, but you will never get that.
That's not true, though.
That's not how nature works.
Yes.
It doesn't design things like that.
Right.
Nature designs specialized things for specialized tasks and specialized functions that are good for what they do.
Yes.
Even if you find an amoeba or like a stem cell that can become anything, it has the potential to become anything, but eventually it becomes that thing and specializes. And now the stem cell has become a muscle cell,
right,
or a fat cell. It becomes a white blood cell. Like it's becomes a specialized thing. It finds its home and its purpose, and it does that well. And it's at peace with not being all the other things.
So just to be clear, you're saying that everyone and everything has a specialized thing that they belong with.
Well, I'm saying for a long time, it's looked like we had two specialized things, men and women, or male and female, or masculine and feminine. And just like with the lions, when we embrace our nature and our form and our role, it goes quite well.
Yes.
And when we struggle or try to be something that we're not, it usually goes poorly. But I'm also saying that if humanity is going to evolve past the two genders thing and become like a million genders or whatever you call it,
right,
you're still going to end up with a bunch of different genders that are different but equal. So Tate's statement that we're different but equal is pretty solid. It's how nature works. It's how it always is. It's how it's always going to be. It's how it always is in every species. And nature would never design one thing that's just great at everything, because then it removes the need for every other thing.
Right. That makes total sense. Yes. And I completely agree. To me, this is a very simple thing, but it took me a really long time to understand this. When I was a feminist, I did not get this. I thought we were meant to be equal and doing the same things all the time. We did a episode recently where we talked about this, the Tradwife episode, where we use the example of I like jars opened and you like to open jars. And like, I can open jars. I'm not brain dead. I have two hands. They work very well. It's not difficult, but I prefer when you do it because you're better at it. It's easier for you to do than it is for me.
I'm well designed for it.
Yes.
With a lot of testosterone.
Yes.
And a great muscle structure.
Look at these ginormous hands and look how tiny mine are. Okay. Who's going to open a jar easier and better and faster? Not these tiny baby hands. These giant mitts, they're going to open like 2 seconds. Yeah, so because you were made for that, and I was made to bring the jar. So, cool. Thank you.
And again, I'm not saying people can't be exceptions or do their own thing. I'm just saying we're all different but equal.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
It's not a crazy statement. It's
Well,
very sensible.
I 100% agree with you. I agree with Andrew Tate. Oh, look at that. It's getting easier to say.
I'm not sure you'll ever fully agree with that, man, but
I don't think so. But, I think we could get along. I think him and I could
have
get
a civil
along.
discussion.
I think we could have some really interesting discussions, because when I saw him on the last Pearl interview, he just did Candace Owens too, and I haven't watched that one yet, but I have it waiting for me. I'll be watching it soon because he seems to be more chill.
Everybody grows.
So, yeah, I love that. Good for him. He seems to be more grown up. Yeah. All right. So, Rise Nation, do you also agree that men and women are different but equal? Or do you think that men and women should really fight against their nature and do the same things all the time? I really want to know what you think. Okay. So, we're going to move on. Yay. The fifth reason that I would let Andrew Tate have a conversation with my son is that he genuinely seems to embrace and love mothers and motherhood. When I watched him recently on the interview with Pearl, it was one of the few times that he softened his tone, that he was really gentle, he seemed really loving, and it gave us a behind the scenes glimpse of the way he treats people that he cares about. So Jay, why do you think that Andrew Tate values motherhood so much? And do you think the rest of the world does too?
Good question. Well, let me ask you. This might not seem related at first, but stick with me.
Okay.
Is entrepreneurship important for society, for the evolution of humanity?
Yes.
Okay. And do you believe that nature and society inspires, designs, trains certain members of humanity to excel at entrepreneurship and focus on it in their life?
Yes.
And would you say that to be truly effective or good or great at entrepreneurship, it requires quite a bit of focus and is basically a full-time job or passion?
Yes.
Okay. Now, would you say that childcare and child raising is similarly important for humanity?
Yes.
And would you say that nature and society trains, inspires, designs, nudges people, certain people, towards childcare and child raising?
Yes.
And would you say that to excel at childcare and child raising, you can't really half-ass it? It's kind of a full-time job or passion that requires a great deal of focus.
Yes.
Okay. And would you say nature has made testosterone-inclined beings well fit and well suited to the entrepreneurship I talked about?
Yes.
They have the competitiveness and aggression necessary to make it in the market.
Yeah. Yes.
And would you say that nature has designed estrogen-inclined beings to excel at childcare and child raising?
Yes, definitely.
They have the empathy and interpersonal relationships and emotional maturity and intelligence to nurture a child to their fullest potential.
And infinite patience too, yes.
Yeah. And so is it common to see Tate having personal accountability for his strengths and weaknesses? He might not be perfect at this, but on the whole, he's fairly decent at calling reality for what it is, accepting reality how it is, and making the best of it.
For the most part, yes. I don't think I've ever heard him say he has a weakness, but yes, for this conversation, yes.
Well, in that Pearl interview you keep referencing, he literally says, "This is my weakness. I suck at this shit." He knows he's not an estrogen-inclined being. He knows he sucks at childcare and child raising and nurturing. He knows he can be a good role model and teach them accountability and discipline and stuff, but he is fully aware that women have an incredibly deep relationship with kids. They carry them in their bodies for 9 months. They spend massive amounts of time with them. They're designed internally and externally to support this child. It's not just their estrogen or lactation or whatever. There's a million things going on behind the scenes. And Tate knows he's not fit for any of that. He literally physically can't do it. And even if he found a way, he'd still suck at it.
Yeah.
Because he knows that we are different but equal. And he knows he's well designed to compete in the market and create a great business, but he's not well designed to nurture and care for and raise a child with that infinite patience you were talking about.
Right. Yeah.
And so when you hear him talk about moms or birth or any kind of life-giving, nurturing thing, he has reverence for it.
Because giving life is the most beautiful thing a female can do. That's what you've evolved to do. That's the thing that men cannot do.
He can spot the strengths and the weaknesses. And he knows women crush him in this area.
Yes.
He knows y'all are powerful with this stuff. He knows you hold the fate of humanity in the palm of your hands. He knows you control the dating market. He knows you control sex and relationships. He says it all the time. He points out the power of women all the time. Just most people aren't hearing it.
No, it goes back to most people aren't listening because of the way he comes across.
Yeah, his energy.
They miss the good stuff.
And his loudness and his aggression. But the message is still there.
Yes.
And so, yeah, of course, I think he cares for and cherishes moms. I'm pretty sure he has a bunch of kids. And I'm pretty sure he knows he couldn't create them by himself. And I'm pretty sure he knows all the moms played a major role in how these kids are being raised.
Right.
And it wouldn't surprise me if he respects and cherishes moms more than the average person. Because the average person just like, moms or whatever, there's a dime a dozen. I see them all the time. Anyone could be a mom, you just pop out a kid. But I don't see him having that attitude. Oh, anyone could be a mom.
No.
I'm Andrew Tate. Anyone could be a mom. Like, he doesn't, this is not it.
No, and typically when a man becomes a father, they, not always, but they tend to be more respectful towards women who are mothers because they're fathers and now they understand the process. And for a woman, we become a mother the moment we know we're pregnant, but for a father, it's not until he holds his child. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's lovely. It was actually the first time listening to him talk about motherhood and mothers and the mothers of his children or mother. It was very touching and it made me like him a little bit. And actually that clip was the reason why I wanted to flip it and change this video to the 5 reasons why I would let my son talk to Andrew Tate. Because before understanding what he really was about and before, I wouldn't let him in the same room as my son, let alone talk to him, So this video is actually, it's a massive compliment to Andrew Tate. So if Andrew ever sees this, I hope you understand that this is a big time compliment for me to say to you. I would let you have a conversation with my son, where a year ago, I wouldn't even let you in the same, zip code. So,
well, that raises a whole separate issue. We could do a whole separate podcast on this topic. But technically, if you've done a good job raising your child, there should be very little risk at letting your child talk to anyone.
Yeah, well.
Right? You could let them talk to Trump, Tate, whoever, right? Some cult leader. If you've raised them fairly well, if you've done a decent job like at teaching them how to navigate life and how to handle ideas and how to interact with humanity and spot truth from lie and stuff like this, basic things about how to navigate the world. If you've done a decent job, that child should hopefully be well equipped to not be influenced by these people.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's a good point.
This is a whole different thing, right?
That's another topic.
Oh, what if I had challenges as a parent and I was a single parent and I couldn't and I had 3 jobs and it's like, okay. All right. I get it. It's a big issue. But in general.
Yeah. And I really do believe that he wants to help these people. I think maybe when he started in the beginning, it was more about making money and growing an audience. But now it feels like it's changed for him. That it's more, and I could be wrong. So, Rization, I'd love to know what your thoughts on motherhood are. Do you agree with Andrew and Jay and I that motherhood is a beautiful, wonderful thing, and mothers should be taken care of and loved and cherished and appreciated more than they are?
And it's a strength worth pursuing.
Yeah.
Not something to shun or dismiss or fight against all the time.
Right. Or to put mothers down for choosing to stay home and raise their children. I think nowadays, especially, this is looked down on a lot by a lot of people.
Shouldn't be.
We did the Trad Wives episode kind of, for me, the reason I wanted to do it was because the Trad Wives were getting so much hate. And as a former homeschooling stay-at-home mother, my kids are grown now. But I did that and it was the best job I've ever had. So.
And super valuable.
Yeah. I'm so grateful I was able to. So, okay. Then I may not be the biggest fan of Andrew Tate, but today we discuss 5 reasons why I would let him have a conversation with my son. Andrew Tate isn't the role model that I would choose for my son. Jay is. But I love that Andrew is out there teaching these young men and boys things that either their own fathers haven't taught them or their single mothers haven't been able to because they don't understand them at all. I'm grateful for that, and I'm really glad that he's out there doing that. And after this episode, would you want your sons to not know these things? I know that I want my son to know all of these and understand them deeply as well. So thank you so much, Jay, for your time and for breaking down these beliefs that Andrew Tate has and answering my questions about them on a deeper level so that I can understand them even better.
Thanks for your great questions.
Yay. So I do have one more question, though. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our wonderful audience?
Yes. Imagine if our kids and future generations weren't taught these 5 things that Tate is teaching. Imagine that our kids weren't taught about their strengths, weaknesses, and specialized areas of power. Imagine they weren't taught the influence that they can have. Imagine they weren't taught personal responsibility, accountability, discipline, commitment, integrity. Imagine they weren't taught how important status is for masculine-leaning folks. Imagine they weren't taught that different is valuable and it's okay to own that, and you don't need to fight or copy or imitate others who are different than you. You can if you want, but it's not nearly as important as society makes it out to be. Imagine that they weren't taught the high value role mothers play and how much strength and power lies in the ability to give and nurture life. You know what you get then? Entitled, confused adults pursuing unaligned things while fighting the valuable inclinations nature gave them, while they scramble to copy the life paths of others, ending up with minimal impact. Is this the future generation you want to create? Is this the child you want to create? Just because the source of those teachings or that wisdom happens to be a distasteful personality? I don't think so. So instead, learn to spot wisdom wherever it is, no matter the source, no matter the format, and teach your kids to do the same. And teach them to spot the difference between helpful views and unhelpful ones. Because most people, Tate included, offer both. And you're crippling your children's ability to succeed in life if they're not able to tell the difference. Let's put the judgment away and spread wisdom and light to the future generations. You got this. I believe in you.
Yay. And that's why this podcast and our book are called Eyes Wide Open. And Andrew Tate and Jay have one awesome thing in common that I love, and that's harsh truths. So if you also like harsh truths, then you will love this video here, it's between us, here, where Jay gives 21 of his harsh truths in a very loving and awesome way.
Keep rising.